the money, for example, Russian money, which are frozen, 300 billion pounds, they can be used if your coffers are running low. Why wouldn't we take a political decision to allow this money to come to finance what Russia's already destroyed? It's just on a very personal, sort of human level is fair. Not only talking about financial necessity from the point of view of the budgeting in many our friends' countries. And you're right, Trump is putting some challenge for all of us, but also he's learning. Look at him. He changed his narrative from resolving 24 hours to say that, we have very small steps and it's much seems to be a bigger problem even than the East or Arab nations in the Gaza situation.
Now, you might recognise this carol, but do you know its origins? The famous Carol of the Bells comes from a Ukrainian folk chant known as Shedrik, written in the early 20th century. For Ukrainians, the song is strongly associated with the coming of the new year. And at the end of another 12 months of war with Russia, there is much to reflect upon and maybe even one or two causes for optimism that 2025 might hold some hope. We can speak now to Vadym Prystaiko, former Ukrainian ambassador to the UK. Good morning, Vadym.
Good morning.
How are you approaching this Christmas? How are you feeling as 2024, which of course has been another very difficult year for your country, draws to a close?
In a Christmas sort of spirit, we see that the bad things and good things are coming together in one big picture. And the good news are that we're alive and not just kicking, but really fighting. Morale is relatively high, regardless of this bombardment daily. Military assistance and financial support from partners is coming. The bad news also at the same time, we still can't stop Russians, stop the advance, however small it is. And this fact seems to have the biggest impact not on the Ukrainian mood, but on our allies. Even from the UK, I start hearing that Biden's administration mantra that we have to help Ukraine, to support them until they decide to sit at the table to make their position stronger. We are missing this, encouraging voice even from London that Ukraine must win and Russia's lose. That's how simple the situation is now in Ukraine.
Does it sometimes frustrate you, Vadym? Does it almost feel as if the West is giving Ukraine enough not to lose, but not enough to win?
You're right, it is frustrating, and I see some political figures are starting to play on it, telling Ukrainians that, we would win, but very unfortunately our partners are weak, and at this time the Russian partners like Iran is sending the killer drones which are terrorizing our cities. The North Koreans are not shying away from sending their soldiers and ballistic missiles. China is paying for gas and oil, and not China only. Let's be frank, most of the world is happy to take advantage of the weaker Russia and buy more gas than actually they need, like India. So that's the situation, that's how the picture is seen.
Do you sometimes think we focus too much as well on the challenges that Ukraine faces in the war? And let's be honest, there are many. We've seen further Russian territorial gains in the east of Ukraine. There have been delays to Western military aid. And of course, one of the big developments of this year has been the return of Donald Trump, a man who has made no secret about his scepticism about funding for Ukraine. And yet, if you look at things from a Russian perspective, they also have very severe challenges. The Russian casualty rate is absolutely astronomical. The Russian economy is incredibly weak. That will pose long-term challenges to Vladimir Putin. And we have seen in recent weeks the blow to prestige in terms of the fall of his, I suppose you could say, puppet in Assad in Syria, and also the assassination of leading Russian generals. Do you think that maybe we overstate Ukraine's difficulties and sometimes understate Russia's?
You're totally right. And sometimes I'm asking myself, why it is happening? Why we are losing the stamina? Why we can't go further when Ukrainians still can? So there is no a need to cut short the assistance right now. And the money, for example, the Russian money, which are frozen, 300 billion pounds, they can be used if your coffers are running low. why wouldn't we take a political decision to allow this money to come to finance what Russia's already destroyed? It's just on a very personal sort of human level is fair. Not only talking about financial necessity from the point of view of the budgeting in many our friends countries. And you're right, Trump is putting some challenge for all of us, but also he's learning. Look at him. He changed his narrative from resolving 24 hours to say that, we have very small steps and it's much seems to be a bigger problem even than the East or Arab nations in the Gaza situation.
That's very interesting on Donald Trump. Are you maybe less pessimistic about what his presidency will mean for Ukraine than maybe you were 6 months ago?
Each and every American president or his administration trying to push some reset button, look into the eyes of Putin and see this soul and all of this stuff. All of them coming, trying to be peaceful and then bring this message to their own people that, unlike the previous guy or guys, I will find a way how to, settle this something with the enigmatic Russian souls. And all of them failed, not because they're bad or their politics is wrong, but Russians are not going to, to play along. So that's the problem. And I guess that Trump will see it. It's bad that he couldn't take it from his previous presidency and, start acting upon knowing facts that Russians are taking somebody else's territory and not Ukraine only.
Yeah, and a lot has been made of Donald Trump's previous comments where he said he could end the war within 24 hours of taking office. Let's be realistic about this. That is not going to happen. But he almost certainly is going to push for some kind of peace negotiations in 2025. Realistically, Vadym, is there any kind of negotiated peace that Zelensky could reach that you think most Ukrainians would accept?
What he is trying to do right now, he is already changing his narrative. What I don't want is that this decision or whatever the settlement will reach will be made on Ukrainian terms only. So it's not about territories. Ukraine, by the way, the biggest nation in Europe after Russia, if we can count Russians a European nation. So there is no a big land problem, and Russians do not need any land. This is something that most of Europeans do not understand and believe if they give them something, like throw the meat to the crocodile, it will curl down and go somewhere back to their swamp. No, they won't, because they don't need it. And the problem is here that we believe that we will sit at the table, negotiate something. We're just not asking whether Russians want to sit at the table. In their eyes, they are doing maybe not good, but okayish. They're still moving. Their morale is high back home. Soldiers are paid much more than not only your soldiers, and I'm following the problems in the UK's army, but even more than American soldiers when they are recruited. So why wouldn't we try to find the model which will work in Ukraine? West is much stronger financially, economically, and politically and militarily than any Russia can be.
And just finally, Vadym, will you be celebrating Christmas Day tomorrow? Because until recent years, Ukraine used the Julian calendar, which is also used by Russia, meaning Christmas fell on the 7th of January. But you've changed the calendar now. So is Christmas now marked on the 25th in Ukraine?
Yes, we did it a couple of years ago, but we have big Ukraine Catholic Church. They called Greek Catholics because they sort of combine both services together. But Ukrainians are quite happy to celebrate twice. There is nothing wrong in here. We deserved it.